Good morning, students. In the last video, we saw the classification on the basis of size, that is micro, small, medium, and large. And we also saw the investment in plant and machinery in all these four types of industries. Now we'll be concentrating in what is commerce. So, commerce already we have learned that it is buying and selling of goods and services from production point to consumption point. So let us see what is commerce as an economic activity. See here, commerce refers to all those activities which are necessary for bringing goods from the place of production to the place of their consumption. So that is the activity of commerce. So that is the meaning of commerce, bringing the goods from the production point to the consumption point. So production point, the producer will be there, and in the consumption point the consumer will be there. So the goods has to move from the production point to the consumption point. Let us see the definition given by Evelyn Thomas. Commercial operations deal with the buying and selling of goods, the exchange of commodities, and the contribution of finished products. Commerce includes not only trade but also services such as transport, warehousing, packaging, insurance, banking, and sales promotion, which are incidental or auxiliaries to trade. So, this we have already seen in the beginning chapter itself. In the first class itself, I have told you what is commerce, what is trade, what are the subdivisions of trade, what are the categories of trade, how are they classified, and what is the meaning of different types of trade, and how these aids to trade are going to help the buying and selling of products or the movement of goods from the production point to the consumption point. Now let us see what is the meaning of trade. Trade is an essential part of commerce. So buying and selling is commerce, we have already seen. So now let us see what is the meaning of the term trade. Is used to denote buying and selling. The person who are involved in this process, that is buying and selling process, are called as buyer and seller or traders. So they are called as traders, and these people take the goods to the ultimate consumers or users. Therefore, one who buys and sells is a trader. A trader is a middleman between the producer and the consumer. He is the link between the producer and the consumer, and they are called as middlemen. And these middlemen may be of different varieties, 8 categories, and the main category is wholesalers and retailers. So what do the wholesalers, who are the wholesalers, or what do the wholesalers do? They purchase goods from the manufacturers or producers in large quantities, in bulk quantities, and sell those goods to the retailers in small quantities. And what is or who is a retailer, or what do the retailers do is the retailers buy in small quantities from the wholesaler and they sell it to the ultimate consumers or customers. The retailers know the taste, preference, choice, demand, and the availability of money with the customers. And they also know the need of the customers. So they are very much in link with the customers. So the retailers are very close to the customers and they know the taste, preference, choice, the availability, the want, they need the goods that they demand, everything, and they pass on these messages to the wholesalers, and the wholesalers they in turn pass on the message to the wholesaler. So this is the link between the producer and the consumer. So the wholesalers are the middlemen and the retailers also middlemen. They are the link between the producer and the consumer. So next is transportation. This is one of the aids to trade. So transportation is nothing but the modes of transport that are used in trade where goods are moved from the production point to the consumption point. Selling all the goods produced in, at, or near the production place is not possible. Say for example, if cotton or clothes are produced in a particular place, say for example Coimbatore is producing lot of cotton goods. Let us take for example, these goods cannot be sold at that particular place itself. It cannot be sold in Coimbatore alone. It has to be transported to other parts of the places, to other parts of the country, to other parts of the world. So in this process, what is involved is, that is bringing the goods from the production point to the consumer's point or to all the different places is done by transportation. There are various modes of transportation, and this also we have already seen in the first introduction class itself. So rail, the modes, different modes of transport are rail, roadways, airways, waterways, etc. So these transportation are they are removing the hindrances of place from one place to another is called transport. The medium which moves men as well as materials from one place to another is called transport, and there are different modes of transport that all I told you just now, and this we have already seen in the introductory class. Now let us move on to what is banking. So business cannot be started without finance or without capital, and all capital is not available with the investor or the businessman. So he might be having a little amount with him. For further amount of investment, he can just borrow from the financial institution. And one of the financial institutions are the banks, and they provide loans and financial assistance to the producers or manufacturer for running the business smoothly. So nowadays we cannot think of business without bank. To start the business or to run it smoothly, we require money. Banks supply money. Business activities cannot be undertaken unless funds are available for acquiring assets, purchasing raw materials, and meeting other expenses. Necessary funds can be obtained from bank. Thus, banking helps business activities to overcome the problem of finance. Hindrance of finance is removed by banks or financial institution. Next, we move on to the topic or another aid to trade is insurance. So business involves various types of risk. Already we have seen this also. The different types of risks occurring due to fire, theft, then damages due to rain, flood, etc. So these risks can be insured. Factory, building, machinery, furniture, etc. must be protected against fire, theft, and other risk factors. So materials and goods held in stock or in transit means when they are in movement, when they are transferred from the production point to the consumption point. So they have to get insured in order to meet the risk factors. And employees are also required to be protected against the risk of accident and occupational hazards. Hazards means dangers. So insurance provides protection in all such cases. One, on payment of nominal premium, the amount of loss or damage and compensation for injury, if any, can be recovered from the insurance company. So what you can do is, when you incur any risk or danger is incurred for your business assets or machinery or for life of employees, you can just claim it from the insurance company. So this is possible so that you can run the business smoothly without any hindrance to it. So the next is warehousing. This is another fifth category of aid to trade, and usually when goods are produced, they are not immediately sold to the consumers. They are kept in storage. They are kept or held in stock to make them available, and when required, special arrangements must be made for storages of goods to prevent loss or damage. Warehousing helps business firms to overcome the problem of storage and facility, the availability of goods when needed. Prices are thereby maintained at a reasonable level through continuous supply of goods. So warehousing also provide different categories of storage facilities. suppose perishable goods, for example, let us take flowers, fruits, vegetables, they have to be stored in air conditioned warehousing facilities should be provided for all these products so that they are provided to the consumers at a good quality without any less quality, so that they are satisfied to the fullest extent. So this is warehousing. Now let us move on to the comparison between industry, commerce and trade, and there are 6 points. Now we have already seen meaning. So you already know what is industry, what is commerce and what is trade. Let us see again, recall what is industry. Extraction, reproduction, conversion, processing and construction of useful product. So they are just manufacturing, production, conversion, processing, analyzing. All these comes under the industrial category. Then activities involving distribution of goods and services, that is commerce. Purchase and sale of goods and services, that is trade. So you're very clear with this point. And the next is scope. Consists of all activities involving conversion of materials and semi-finished products into finished products. That is the work of the industry. That is, raw materials and semi-finished products are converted into finished goods. Then commerce comprises trade and auxiliaries to trade. Trade, you know that activities involving purchase and sales of goods, that is trade. So auxiliaries to trade means, you know that it is warehousing, insurance, then you have middlemen, all these people, trade, everything comes on transport. These all come under the category of commerce and auxiliaries to trade. Comprises exchange of goods and services. That is the scope of trade. Capital, generally large amount of capital is required for industry. Need for capital is comparatively less than industry, and small capital is needed to maintain stock and to grant credit. So credit is available in case of trade. And risk involved is usually high. Since capital is high, risk is also will also be high only. Relatively less risk is involved. Relatively less risk is involved. So these two categories, commerce and trade, they involve less amount of risk than compared to industry. Next is side. It represents supply side of goods and services. That is, industry is involved in production. They are going to supply whatever goods are necessary for the consumers. Commerce represents demand side of goods and services. Whatever is the demand made by the consumers, that is the representation or the side of the commerce department. Then it represents both supply and demand. So buying as well as selling. So that is why it represents both supply and demand. Utility creation. It creates form utility by changing the form or shape of materials. They are converted while production. Raw materials is changed into another semi-finished product or completely finished product. So they get changed. The form of the product is getting changed. Raw cotton is changed into clothes, or yarn. Yarn is converted into clothes. Now you see, cotton is a raw material, yarn is a semi-finished product, and again yarn is converted into cloth. That is the final finished product. So that is the process involved in industry. Then commerce creates place utility by moving goods from producers to consumers. So place utility is created because they make the goods available to the consumers. Then trade creates possession utility through exchange. You can possess, you can own the goods that you need, that you want in trade. So again, one point I forgot to remind you in this juncture, that is trade. Division of trade, we have forgot to recall. Trade is actually divided into internal trade and external trade. Internal trade is otherwise known as domestic trade, and external trade is otherwise known as international trade. So internal trade is divided into import and export trade, whereas international trade is divided into import trade, export trade and entrepot trade. So What is internal trade? Trade carried on within the boundary of a nation, within the boundary of a country, within the boundary of a state. That is called as internal trade. When we are crossing the limit of a country, when we are crossing the boundary of a country, then it is called as external trade or international trade. And it is of three types. They are import trade, export trade, and entrepreneur trade. Import trade means when goods that was not available in our country or just bought from another country, that is called as import trade. For example, let us say oil, diesel, petrol is not available adequately in our country, so we import oil, petrol from Arabian nations. So this is import. So exporting means just selling the uh, sufficient or the surplus goods that are available in our country to another country is called export trade. For example, let us take tea. Tea production is in surplus in our country, so we export or we sell tea to other countries of the world. So this is export trade. Entrepreneur trade, buying from one country and selling to another country. So we just serve as a middleman here. So buying from one nation and selling it to another nation. That is called as entrepreneur trade. So I just want you to get reminded of this division of trade also. So with this we are completing the third chapter, and we have seen the subdivisions of industry on the basis of activity and on the basis of size, and we have also seen what is trade and auxiliaries to trade. So thank you children, and keep learning. I'll be making the revision of this chapter in the next class. Thank you.